definitely there for you to share the flow of imagination and monetization, turning play into work. Go ahead, Hannah, your time.
Thanks, Sam. Thank you. That W in my last name throws everybody off, so don't feel bad. um, all right, let me share my screen here real quick. Can everyone see my screen? Can you give me a one in the chat or a thumbs up in the screen so I can? Great, thanks. Thank you. All right. So first of all, I'd like to say thank you so much. I'm actually going to move you guys to the top of my screen because otherwise I'm going to be looking over to the side all the time, and I always feel that that's rude. So I'm just going to move you over here. There we go. That's a bit better. So Sam, thank you so much for having me. And Lily and Debbie, amazing presentations, both of you. Lily, I couldn't agree more with the, hire a personal board of directors that like, as you're making a move from one thing to another, that's so true. I have my own and yes, they've saved me from myself more times than I can remember. And Debbie, I love your idea about the point of sale, like asking customers to contribute to the causes that we support at the point of sale. I never considered doing that, in the business that I'm in, and I love that. So thank you very much for those. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm a multinational expatriate executive coach and facilitator. And it's funny, Lily and I were actually laughing that we actually have an incredibly similar background. I come from a Polish family that also thought I was completely nuts to be starting my own business because they were behind the Iron Curtain and nobody had their own businesses. So I was raised in the Middle East and schooled in the UK. So I've been a gypsy around the world my whole life. And actually became a US-based aerospace executive, which is for a number of reasons, fairly hard to do because there are export control regulations and visas and all sorts of different things that make it quite hard to be in the aerospace industry in the US as a non-US national at the time. And it was a great career, but that wasn't everything that I did. And so one of the things as we think about, setting up our own businesses or trying to figure out how to monetize what we do, and Lily touched on this earlier, is what is it that we want to monetize? Like which aspect of what we do is the one that we want to do? So, I did the same thing. I did an inventory okay, which thing do I want to do? Well, I could do the skiing thing. I could do the scuba thing. I could do the university thing, or, I definitely don't want to race motorcycles anymore because that's way too dangerous at my age. But, there were so many different things. And so how do we bring all of these passions into our work, and how do we turn this, all of us are multifaceted human beings with many different interests. And so how do we choose a thing? How do we do that? So for me, the aerospace journey actually began in the late 90s. And it was really a combination of luck, grit, and gumption that got me into the industry. So this picture is actually the first image from Ikonos, which was a satellite that a company that I joined launched. And it was really the revolution that started. This was 6 years before Google Earth. So nobody really understood what we did. We took pictures from space. And it wasn't until 6 years later when Google Earth came along that people were like, oh, that's what you do, because they could see the images in Google Earth. But I mention this because the way that I actually ended up working with this company is, there was a little bit of luck being in the right place at the right time, but it was also having the guts and the gumption to say yes to an opportunity, just like Lily mentioned, and actually ask for what I wanted. So I was interviewing with the hiring company that had placed the ad for this company in the local newspaper. And they said, yes, we'll reach out to the company, we'll let them know. And I said, no, you don't understand. I am the person for the job. You have to give me the hiring manager's phone number right now. And they did, which I don't know if they were supposed to, but if I hadn't asked, none of this I wouldn't be here. My life would have gone in a completely different direction. So the first thing to think about is be willing to ask for what you want. If you're going to think about starting your own business. Now, the next thing is somewhere along the way, you'll have an aha moment. Mine didn't come in the office. It didn't come while I was working. It came in the ocean. So I was scuba diving in the Straits of Hormuz with a bunch of friends, and we were all instructors or close to it. And we love to play practical jokes on each other. So one of the things that we used to do was turn each other's air off, which sounds like a crazy thing. And don't worry, like we were all safe. Everybody knew what they were doing. There was always somebody on the lookout to make sure everybody was safe. But one of my friends had just played this trick on somebody else, and I was laughing so hard that I forgot to pay attention to my regulator, and I got water in my lungs. And so suddenly I'm drowning 130 feet down, and I did 2 kicks for the surface. And thankfully, all my training then took over, because I realized that if I kept going for the surface, I would probably die, because we were very deep and very far away from help. And so I knew I had to think through what was happening. And I had so much water in my lungs that every time I tried to breathe, I would cough. And I was just running out of air. And so I said, okay, well, coughing's not going to work. I need to somehow get air into my lungs really slowly. And so I sipped the air ever so slowly past all the water in my lungs so that I wouldn't activate that cough reflex. And obviously, since I'm here, it worked, right? But the aha moment, the reason I share the story with you is that was the moment that introduced me to the power of the mind. Because if you think about it, I was in mortal danger, and yet I was able to override all of millennia of conditioning and the screaming voice in my head to think through what I needed to do in the moment. And from that point on, I was fascinated. So this began a years-long study of neuroscience and psychology and behavior science and all these things, all the while working still in aerospace. And so this was my life for a great many years. I flew millions, literally millions of airline miles all around the globe. But while I was doing that, I was studying and I was reading more and more. And so the first teacher really of mine was Professor Martin Seligman. I read everything that I could find because he was the founder of positive psychology. And what he talked about is this idea of a layer cake life, that there's a layer of our life that is the pleasant layer. It's the ice cream and the nice car and the great house and the killer wardrobe and the great handbag, and that's all great. There's nothing inherently wrong with any of it. The problem is we habituate to it very quickly. And so the things that, the first bite of ice cream is really amazing, but by the 5th bite, it doesn't taste so good. The amazing car that you bought, 5 years ago is not quite so amazing 5 years down the road. So there's a deeper layer that comes from engagement. And engagement is something that a different professor, which I'll talk about in a moment, talks about a lot, but it's this sense of being in flow. It's sense of time dropping away, being fully engaged in something. And lastly, there's the bottom layer of the cake, if you will, is meaning. And so what Professor Seligman had done is he looked at, this was a massive study with tens of thousands of participants. He looked at 120 different interventions, everything from Buddha to Tony Robbins. And what he found was the people that were happiest were not the best looking, they weren't the richest, they weren't the fittest. They were the ones that lived a meaningful life. And what did he mean by that? It was a life where they were engaged in a cause larger than themselves, something that drew them to do great work. And the engagement is a big piece of that. And that's work done by Professor Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, who talked about this idea of flow. And flow is when something is just the right difficulty, where you're not bored, but you're not anxious. Time drops away, you're completely absorbed in everything that you're doing. So I became obsessed with figuring out how to do this in my work life. And pretty quickly, things changed for me in my career. I ended up working for Sir Richard Branson, and here I am standing next to the spaceship Unity right at its unveiling. And then I worked for Paul Allen, and this is a photo I took of the world's largest aircraft taking off for the very, very first time. And these are examples of where my career went once I started paying attention to what is it that drives me? What are the things that put me in flow and engagement? And it was just like Lily, funnily enough, it wasn't the technology, it was the people. It was all about the people. And so how did I decide to move forward with that? Who am I? What do I do? Well, I am a multinational expatriate executive coach. I am a multinational, I am an expatriate, and I have been an executive, and I love to coach people. And so, when I thought about what my company would do, it was really about finding that meaning and that cause that was bigger than myself. And so I want to ensure that technical and joyful are not mutually exclusive, because for a while there where I was on the road, they were for me. In plain English, what do? I help technical folks, who are my people, outwit, overwhelm, expand their perspectives, and rediscover joy in their work and at home. And I think it's really important in all of this to still have that pleasant piece, the thing that makes you laugh, the thing that makes it all enjoyable. And so I always keep a little bit of fun in all of my business writing. And so what does EVA stand for? It's a nod to obviously to extravehicular activity, right? So it's a reference to Wall-E's object of desire, the robot Eva that always looks for the source of life. And a reminder not to keep arms and legs in the vehicle at all times, because I love roller coasters. So that would be my advice if you are looking to start your own business and start something new, is follow the thing that gives you meaning and keeps you in flow, and you will find your way, and make sure to have fun along with it. So if you'd like to talk more, I'd love to chat or work together. I'll put my contact info in the chat. And thank you very much.